Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and my guest today is Sonny Nguyen, chef owner of Edoboy, TORI TORI, and 3 locations of DOMU, whose flagship is in East End Market in Audubon Park. Be sure to follow DOMU FL on Instagram and visit the Linktree hub at DOMU FL for Anniversary Week and all of Sonny's restaurant locations info. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. And with me today is Sonny Nguyen, chef owner of Edoboy, TORI TORI, and 3 locations of DOMU, whose flagship is in East End Market. Sonny, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you today. A big part of the reason that I do this podcast is because I want to document the stories of the people who make this a destination neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And DOMU is such a critical part. Like, people come here for DOMU now, which is such a cool thing. You're celebrating your 7th year. Congratulations. We'll talk about some of the events that you have planned for that. Mm-hmm. And so also East End Market is celebrating its 10th year. Mm-hmm. So lots of anniversaries coming up. I remember the first restaurant that was there, which was Choco's. Mm-hmm. And it was a Basque-themed restaurant by Chef Henry Salgado. And they were there for the first 3 years of East End's history. And that space, I mean, just the build out there, it's such a beautiful, inviting space. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing that a ramen shop was going in, mm-hmm. and that your ties to the bento company. Yep. And all of the expectations were met and exceeded once you opened up shop there. And just seeing the successes and seeing like how popular DOMU is. And I was in there just the other night, and just having a bowl of ramen, having those fried chicken wings that are just, I mean, mind-blowing, right? What you do is so magical. So I'm so excited to learn more about the history, things that you're working on, the future, mm-hmm. Things like that. So let's start with kind of some background. I know that your family has restaurants in the Central Florida area. Tell me about that.
During those years from 4 to 6, really kind of just introduced me to what restaurant life was by default, just because my parents worked a lot, obviously, both parents, and, you know, they had to bring me along a lot of the times. So there was always some type of like small back room or back office where it would be like the storage where all the extra chairs would go, mm-hmm. or like, you know, there might be like a desk in there or something, and that
wherever
would be,
you would fit, right?
Yeah, that kind of like, hey, all right, you hang out here most of the day, and you know, obviously, I'll try my best to be in there as long as I could, but eventually, you know, I would go into the kitchen and this and that, and kind of just like be interested, interact with the workers at that young of an age. Mm-hmm. I remember, you know, them letting me wash some dishes and roll some egg rolls and things like that. So I think that was my very first kind of taste of what the restaurant life kind of was. And I think it just like at that young of an age, it just seemed normal to me. You know what I mean? So it just kind of, it was always engraved in me, mm-hmm. At that age. But I didn't really work for restaurants again until about the age of 14. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of a gap there, which I worked at my cousin's mall chicken restaurant. So it was very...
So still in food, right? Yeah, you never left food and bev.
Exactly. Uh-huh. So it was kind of, I would say, very, very, very similar to Chick-fil-A. Mm-hmm. But at that time...
What was that called?
It was called Chick Garden. So,
all right.
Yeah, so it's
That's a good name.
It's that type of place. And
is that still around?
No, it was only there for a few years. But, you know, that definitely kind of picked my interest, you know, further in food, was because, you know, although I was helping out on the front side of things, mm-hmm. every chance I got, you know, to go back and try to drop some food or make some food, and because there's only 2 of us at all times, so you know, so that really, I was really interested in the cooking side of things, and during my childhood, and during that from that period and prior, I think my brother was quintessential in that period of my life, because I think he noticed that I loved watching like Iron Chef at such a young age and things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the old school Japanese Iron Chef that they used to feature like late night on Food Network. And so, he would take me to the store and he'd let me pick out some ingredients. So like we'll pick out like two, like the extremely cheap, the cheapest steaks you could get in the thing, and we'll bring it home and we'll have little battles, and his girlfriend, which is now his wife, would be the judge. And so awesome. So it's just kind of like, I think he caught on early on that I really liked cooking, and kind of, always supported me in that aspect. Growing up in an Asian household, and especially like parents who came from Vietnam, escaped the war and things like that, they obviously want the best for us. And I think this could be an Asian stereotype, or I could be stereotypical myself in saying that, my parents wanted me to be a doctor or a pharmacist or an accountant or some type of professional,
Sure. And maybe not easier life, but maybe easier life almost in a way, right? It's like, yeah, it's a hard hustle, right? Being in the restaurant industry, you're always battling things, right?
Every single day, and I think they knew from that experience, like, man, this is really hard, and they might not want me to go into that field either.
Yeah.
Some of my family wasn't very encouraging in me staying in the restaurant industry per se. So I kind of did both. So throughout my college education, I also worked in the food industry with bento. So I worked for bento for 10 years, actually, right when I got into college, and then continued all the way past college. And I didn't have that much support in that aspect, but I did go ahead and finish my accounting degree. So that way I satisfied the family side of things. So I do have an accounting degree from UCF. And with bento, Johnny and Jimmy, they offered me a job right out of college to come onto their upper management side. At that time, it was only, a handful of bentos at the time, maybe 5 or less. And, they were just getting things started, getting ready to ramp things up. They were building a management team to help them grow and things like that. And so I kind of joined in on that team alongside Tammy, who is probably their main operations person now, Tammy Laney. So we stuck through the grind for many years until 2016. At that time, I was getting a lot more curious. Obviously I've been in the food the whole time, right? I'm like, my tenure at bento is more of a jack of all trades versus just in the kitchen, right? Like my last role with them was executive project manager. So I was opening all the new stores with them, getting with the contractors and architects and meeting with them and making sure that certain doors open a certain way, for efficiency, and kind of like building new formats of kitchen layouts to be more efficient, and just making sure everything was there and tying up the loose ends at the end. And, so it was a fun thing for me to just travel city to city and see new projects get built. I think that's the most exciting part, is looking at it from a design and then seeing it progress during the construction period. And then finally to the very end, it's like very satisfying seeing the end result. And just being a part of that, was really inspiring, and it taught me a lot in terms of the building side of a business. Also, during my tenure with bento, I kind of did a lot of things. I did graphic design for them. I designed flyers, menus, all types of stuff. And
what a unique experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that was like your real college, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is that, up until I got that upper management position, I was just in the kitchen. I learned my way from like dishwasher to just moved my way all the way up to being the manager, and then kind of like learning the ins and outs of ordering and menu development and this and that. And so that was kind of like the beginner part of it. The intermediate part of it was like learning the business side of things. I think, one of my biggest mentors, the other partner, David Yu, he's kind of just a minority partner in the bento group. But at the time, he was the partner running the Orlando stores. And so I was working under him, and he taught me a lot about the numbers side of the business. So, I guess like a cumulative 10 years, I learned the ins and outs of operations, being a manager, cooking,
and even construction. I mean, that's such a rare skill set to have.
Construction and the numbers of understanding what we need to hit, looking at a P&L, and just like getting with accountants. It's just so many. doing payroll. There's so many things that I learned in those 10 years. And like, I think a lot of people say this, but I say it myself too, is that, if you do something for 10 years, like you're going to be good at it. It doesn't matter what you do. If you play soccer, you skateboard, anything, swimming, you're going to be really good at it after 10 years of doing it. So I think it just came to the point where like towards the end there, when I was with Bento, I was kind of running Avenue Gastrobar. It was one of their bars downtown that they opened. And I was taking over after Marklo and Jen from Cadence. They moved back to Florida at the time, and then they took over Avenue running the kitchen for a little while before they moved on to East End Market to open up Capo. Mm-hmm. And that was around 2015. So once they moved over there, I took over the kitchen there and kind of had to like build it from where they left it and get it into a profitable position. So it took me about a year to get everything into a profitable position, redid the menu, built new staff, built new systems.
Like a bar rescue kind of thing, right? In a way, yeah.
No, well, the thing is that it started with Mark, Jen, and Lo. They actually got things jump-started. For me, I just kind of had to like jump in and figure out like, damn, these guys from New York and London, I had to like live up to these.
They're a big deal.
Yeah, live up to these guys and make sure that I can continue the success and make sure that we get us to a profitable position. And, so I did a great job at that point, in my opinion. And then I started doing these pop-up dinners under DOMU, and I think I was very experimental those couple years of just like, I never really had that many hobbies. Like whenever I got bored, I went in the kitchen and experimented and cooked. So I spent a lot of time in those years of just like cooking and making recipes and not necessarily knowing for what yet, and I'm just building a database of recipes that I kind of develop on my own spare time outside of work. So eventually, I think Johnny saw the potential that was brewing in me, and he gave me the opportunity to open up the first DOMU at East End and help me fund that. At the time, obviously, they were all busy opening up their South Florida Davie location in Tallahassee. So, all the bento people were busy opening bento while I was busy opening up DOMU.
Yeah. How many bentos did they have around that point?
To the end of 2016, I believe they had probably roughly around 9.
Wow.
So we had just started opening around, that would be like the 9th location probably around that time. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a lot of growing pains the first year, I would say, is just like kind of going in and just like figuring everything out from the ground up, figuring out our hours, figuring out our broths. It was pretty tough years just because
there was no template for this one, right?
There's nothing. So, I think that, but after you do it for, I guess another 7 years, mm-hmm. It's a lot easier for me now to understand that. But that very first year was just like, do we open for lunch and we open for dinner, and what times do we open? How much staff do I need? Are staff working out? Are certain things on the menu not working out? Do I need to expand the menu? Are we doing good enough? Are the broths perfect? And all these things. So, at the time, we opened lunch and dinner when we first opened. Mm-hmm. And that was already like, we opened up at 11 and we closed at like 10. So I would send all the workers home, and I would stay after to start the broths for the next day because I had to make broth every single day. And so basically, as soon as maybe like midnight came and all the staff went home, I started my broths.
Wow.
And I would be there until maybe 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then I'd get back in probably 9 a.m. and then do the whole entire day. And that was like that for an extended period of time, to the point where I realized that, maybe I'm overextending myself. Let me just close for lunch. It takes a lot of pressure off of me, just opening for dinner. And that's kind of like how, and ever since then, we never opened for lunch again, besides for the weekends.
Yeah. And that's kind of brunch, right? That's
brunch. Yeah. So we, and what that taught me is that I need a lot less resources in terms of staffing and energy and production and things like that. And I can just focus it all into a set of hours a day, and we all put our energy into this set of hours and make sure we just execute well. And it worked out ever since. And, I think it was like common thing at the time for restaurants to be open lunch and dinner. Like, we were really different. At the time, you wouldn't hear like hip hop on the music inside of restaurants. You know, you would be open lunch and dinner. There would be uniforms for the front of house, back of house. And it was just really like, we came in and it was just,
you're breaking the mold.
yeah, like everyone was probably like raising eyebrows, like who does this guy think he is? You know, like this isn't the standard of what a restaurant is. We did like no reservations. And for me personally, I like to do things different. I like to not follow the mold. I like...
Keeps it interesting, right?
Yeah, I like keeping it interesting. Obviously, there's a downside to that, right? Like there's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to understand. There are going to be a lot of people who won't get it, or there's going to be a lot of people who are used to following the line and don't accept us for who we are, right?
And maybe it's just not for them, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Yeah. And so that took like a year of, you know, a lot of bad reviews of DOMU, like going through that, like,
That's
I can't
hard.
believe that they don't take reservations, we can't get a seat or whatever, and, you know, and all this stuff. And then like, but we stuck through it. And then eventually I would say like probably in late 2017, everyone started understanding, like, because we didn't budge basically. This is like, hey, this is just who we are. We're doing this not to make people mad. We're doing this because we need to keep the restaurant efficient. We can't do takeout because we're already at our max capacity of how many seats we have, and our kitchen's already like doing the best that they can with the space that we have in there. Yeah, getting the food out just to the dining room alone, you know. And then reservations and things like that was just that, you know, I had a long history of like people just not showing up for the reservations, and then things like that. And I just wanted equal opportunity for everyone to dine. So
you have to be present.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, you can't just book like 10 tables that evening and then all 10 don't show up or something, and then like we're all kind of just waiting around, you know. So a lot of these rules are things that, and the way we were, I think, really shaped us to who we are today, in that, you know, we stayed true to ourselves. And I think that a little bit of every concept that I open, I look back at that scenario and I inject that same methodology into these new concepts. Is that I always want some type of element to be unique and different, and it's something that people may not jump onto the bandwagon for. Sure. But there's a reason of why I would do it, you know. And I'll give you a prime example is for Edoboy. We are a standing sushi bar. Like, we're probably the only standing restaurant in Florida, you know.
I love that.
But
I have not been, but I've heard such good things.
Yeah, so it's not the fact that we are just trying to be butthole. I don't even, can I say that? I don't know.
Sure.
We're not trying to be like,
I love it.
We're not trying to be any type of
Buttholes.
way by our buttholes
Yeah.
of not giving you any seats. It's just that we're trying to introduce you to the way, another form of dining in Japan. You know what I mean? Like when I go to Japan, I'm actually going to Japan at the end of the month, and I'm going to make sure that, you know, one of my favorite ways to eat sushi was at the standing sushi bar, you know, and my wife as well. And, you know, I think that always resonated with me, that it was quick, it was good quality, it was fair priced, and it was just like a kind of in and out under an hour, and just like, you know, you can get your fix and move on, you know. And I think that always resonated with me every time I went to Japan. And so that kind of bringing that tradition and authenticity back to Orlando and giving them an experience that's not known in Orlando, but known in Japan, and kind of opening that like door and opening the mind up a little bit. Yeah. To give us a chance to understand the Japanese culture. This is actually the original way sushi was eaten back, you know, in ancient Tokyo days. And it was just all little carts, and everyone stood and ate and moved on. And so this is kind of how sushi was born. And, you know, I kind of wanted to introduce a little bit of that history and keep the authenticity of Japanese culture and things like that. And obviously we do get people who say, you know, they're upset that there's no chairs and things like that. But at the end of the day, like... And
you accommodate ADA, of course.
100%. Yeah, everything is ADA. We have an ADA counter. It's just that, you know, it does take a little bit of time. And I think that at this point in my career with DOMU, those who have followed throughout the 7 years, I think understands that's just my style, is that we're going to do things a little bit different. It's not going to be necessarily what you know as a sushi bar and things like that. And maybe they're a lot more accepting now, or just in general, the population is more accepting and open-minded when it comes to culinary experiences. So
yeah, and you have a reputation both in quality of food and the experience itself, right? And staffing. It's like I've heard only good things about working for you from people. So that's always such a nice thing, you know. I mean, that just goes such a long way as far as this is something that people want to support because these are good people, this is good food, and it's sustainable because you've thought about all of these things and you're constantly innovating and bringing new things to the table. And this is such an exciting time in Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we got rated recently. I think it was People Magazine saying we're like the top foodie city in the country as far as like affordability, diversity, value, that sort of thing, and quality. And so for Orlando to top that list, I think was kind of surprising to us all because there are so many great food cities in the U.S.
Oh yeah,
and obviously there's ways of poking holes in that theory, but like just the fact that we were recognized in that way, and there is so much new talent. There's so many restaurants opening up and great ones that have been around for a bit, and the audience is there to sustain it. There's no shortage of great food here, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So it's an exciting time to be in Orlando in general, and especially a restaurateur, because people are super into it, and they do, and a lot of people do get it, and that's why you do it, right?
For sure. You know, I feel like Orlando in the past 5 years definitely has blossomed a lot heavier than it's ever blossomed. You know, I've lived in Orlando for 14 years now, going on 15, and you know, prior to that, we traveled to Orlando often just to go shopping at the Asian groceries. And in the last 5 years alone, I feel like Orlando has definitely blossomed. Everyone's pushing the boundaries further and further, new and existing restaurateurs, and I think everyone's always trying to improve, even for ourselves. Like, you know, in the past 7 years for DOMU, our menu hasn't changed like drastically, but we're always weekly in the kitchen doing research and development and how to improve our current menu constantly over and over and over and over again. So right now, if you go to DOMU versus, you know, maybe the first couple years, it's going to be drastically different from our broths to our bases, to our oils, to our toppings, to our everything has been like improved little by little by little by little every single week almost up until the past 7 years. So it's on the forefront of things when customers look at DOMU, they kind of still see that same menu and the same format. And we do inject new things here and there, but our ultimate goal over the years was to constantly improve our product every single time we look at it. And, you know, I think that, you know, if you haven't been to DOMU in a while, you know, and maybe like that first impression wasn't the best for you or best experience, or the broth wasn't that rich or thick or white or things like that, I think that it's a good time for customers to come back and try it again and see if maybe we can exceed that expectation of their first time. You know, because I think that during those first couple of years was tough for me because, you know, just getting consistency down and things like that. And
and the capacity, I mean, the amount that you were trying to produce at that time.
Yeah,
that alone is like, wait a minute, how can you actually do that and pull that off?
It was difficult. Let me tell you that. And my team, a lot of my team during those years really like, man, I can't do anything without my team. You know what I mean? And and just hearing you say that, you know, that you heard that, you know, it's great working for me. And it's like, a lot of times when I see like my old managers, like I'm talking about from the beginning that have just like recently moved on to other things, is that, you know, I get teary-eyed a little bit when that happens. But at the same time, those managers have learned everything they possibly could with me, and they're moving on to a bigger role in their career, you know, moving on to the next step of what I cannot, like, as far as I can take them. And then they're moving on to something even bigger than what I was able to give them, you know, and you know, it makes me proud at the same time, but it also
grows the whole food scene too, right? You're just like,
you know, like we can have all these managers go out and take the next step. But, you know, I think the biggest part of that is at a holiday party, my prior bar operations manager, because she just got promoted to like a big job with the distribution side, and I was just like, man, I feel like everyone is moving past. I'm like standing still almost, where all these people, all these managers are moving like to bigger and better things, while I'm still kind of just like, I'm here, and I'm bringing up the next set of managers coming up, and and it gets kind of sad at the same time, because like I'm building all of these people up and hopefully giving them the best information that I can, and teaching them and empowering them, and I'm proud and sad at the same time when they move on to the next thing, and I'm like, oh man, but I'm still here at DOMU, I'm still here at TORI.
It's part of the process, though, right? That's the thing. Yeah,
it is. But I love it. I think that it feels great to be able to empower people. I understand that not everyone's going to think the way I think, but I do love to give my input on things, and just like also allow my managers to make their own decisions on things, give them the trust that they're going to make the right decision. And if they don't, that's okay too, because then we catch it, and then we understand what happened. Right? Yeah. And then the next time we kind of move forward and always get better. So, but yeah, my team is like fantastic. I don't think any of us in Orlando can do it without our teams. I think when I look around the food scene now, a lot of these restaurants and restaurateurs have great staff, and I think everyone's really pushing the envelope. I feel like right now, out of all times, definitely is very pinnacle with Michelin here. James Beard is more present in Orlando, getting that recognition from People Magazine, and obviously a lot of these things, it's all someone's opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, so they may believe that New York or this or that, and I love New York. I go to New York to get inspiration, in Chicago as well, and San Fran. And
those will always be the top cities.
Yeah. In my mind, those are always the top cities. But I'm happy, that Orlando is getting recognition, whether or not it's amongst the people it's positive or negative. It's just the fact that it's there. Kind of like what you said earlier. And
well, people doubt it too. Like if they haven't been here in a while, there was that quote, Andrew Zimmern was like, there's no good food in Orlando. And it's and then he had to do like an apology tour for that.
Yeah, he came by DOMU for that.
yeah. Which but that could be a common misconception if you haven't been here in 5-10 years. Exactly. Like you said, it's like it has transformed in such a profound way. And if you don't come see it, you won't know. So that's, again, like why that list I think is important, and Orlando being on there, so people that are the doubters or the haters can like come check it out and find out like, oh, this is pretty legit, right?
Yeah, honestly, I think I was looking on social media like a few days ago, and we were on the top list of something else in the culinary world. And when I see that, obviously it's controversial, but it's good for us no matter what, because to the rest of the world, they're looking at the same article that we are, and it brings a lot more people to Orlando to come see what we're about.
And to leave the attractions, not just stay in the Disney area.
Exactly, and I think that there is a lot of local restaurants and businesses that really benefit from that, and I think that it really, I've been saying this in the beginning of my career, is just like, we really all collectively want to put Orlando on the map. And it's finally starting to emerge. And it only took 5 to 7 years. Yeah. Imagine what the next 5 years is going to look like, and where we're going to be in 5 years. And I think that maybe then Orlando might look at as a strong contender in one of the top cities for the food industry. And I think that, time will tell. And I think that as long as everyone continues to push in the city and continues to innovate and continues to, even just provide great food, great service, mostly for our locals, and continue to just be who we are, I think naturally we've just all came to this point, and I think everyone's just starting to recognize, obviously with the help of Visit Orlando, Visit Florida, and things like that, more and more outside chefs are coming into Orlando, getting their opportunity to kind of like put their ideas down and really expand our culinary palates. And so I'm excited for it. Yeah. I'm going to keep doing my thing as well. And I know everyone in town is just continuing to push as well. So I think we're in a good spot right now in Orlando. So
we really, really are. And so you're up to 7 restaurants now, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got a location in Jacksonville of DOMU.
Yep.
You've got a Dr. Phillips location of DOMU as well. Mm-hmm. And you've got Edoboy and Tori Tori.
We also have East End DOMU, DOMU Lab upstairs, which is kind of our incubator chef's table. And then we also have a small version called DOMU Chibi, which is Little DOMU in Waterford Lakes, which is more like a casual fast food style of ramen. So
I've been there a few times.
Yeah. So it's just a quick spot to go in and out, take it to go. That place does do takeout and just kind of like supply that side of town with ramen on the east side. So
yeah, and I love the being present thing about no reservations. And I anytime I eat at DOMU, I feel very present with my bowl of ramen. Like it's such a comforting food. And after the meal, I always like catch myself thinking about how delicious it was. And that doesn't always, like, we eat really well and we appreciate food so much, but for some reason, like ramen is it's a different type of experience. Mm-hmm. You know, it's comfort food, and it just sort of warms your heart in a different way. The entire experience of it, mm-hmm. right? Just the different elements, the care that goes into the broth, the noodles that you make in-house. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people prior to DOMU opening didn't really understand what ramen could be, mm-hmm. because people had sort of that grocery store idea of ramen, and it's like, yep. Oh, this is just that, but it's totally not just that.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, everyone's had instant ramen, right? That's
sure,
you know, Ando Momofuku was the creator of the first packaged instant ramen in Japan. You know,
they freeze dry it. Is that the idea?
Yeah, mm-hmm. I think at the time they either freeze dried it or air fried it. You know, probably before air fryers were relevant, but they, you know, I went to the instant ramen museum in Osaka, and so it kind of gave me the history of ramen and all the way up to understanding when ramen first came and the very first instant ramen package. It was really cool.
That's really cool.
It's kind of like a nerd,
research trip.
A ramen nerd type of trip, but you know, but it was really cool to see that, like, this is where most people will understand ramen, is that packaged ramen, and kind of like trying to introduce Japanese methodology and techniques, authentic techniques, mm-hmm. into a bowl of ramen was something that just no one was doing at the time. And I was just really like nerding out on that stuff and experimenting a lot. And so that's kind of how DOMU came together. I wouldn't say we're like authentic. We do have a more traditional side of the menu, mm-hmm. that we still kind of like, we're expanding that for next season as well to introduce cool. a few more traditional styles of ramen, mm-hmm. That we've never had before. But that was our main goal, is just to make sure that we did our best to follow what ramen truly is, but obviously stay true to ourselves at the same time. So there's always something, a little something different. And that's why I can't call it 100% authentic. Although we do make the broths in an authentic way. We do make the noodles in an authentic way.
That's the base, right? That's like,
the flavors are very authentic, but we always have a little bit of a twist somewhere, you know? And I think that's what makes us unique. It's food that's coming from my heart, and really just like food that I like to eat. Like when I do research and development, I'm kind of in the kitchen, sometimes by myself, sometimes with our culinary director, Manny. And we just go in, and it could be just 6 to 8 hours of just doing the same exact thing over and over, trying the same exact thing over and over until we're satisfied. And we could do that again for days on end until we're satisfied with something. But if we're not even satisfied with something, like I could be working on one thing for days over and over and over and over and over again, and eventually just scrap it because I'm not happy with it. Mm-hmm. And so
it might not be the right time, right? It's like this might come to me another time, but it's not coming to me now.
I just had this conversation with Manny yesterday because we just had R&D, and it's just, I'm trying to explain to him the steps and levels in my head when I'm like thinking of like making a dish or improving a dish. And for me, it's a huge game, a process of elimination, right? Like I want to go in there with all my hopes and dreams of what this dish or improvement could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to, the vision, and I want to narrow it down to a certain amount of things on the table. And I want to keep trying every possible combination that I can possibly think of that makes sense to me before I move on to another product or another piece. But I want to make sure that I did everything possible for that one piece that could have been some type of element to this dish, and fully eliminate it out of my head, like just trash it, so I don't have to think about it, so I can make room for more and more and more. So it's like a huge process of elimination for me, and that's why it takes very long time, because I'm just very like meticulous and detailed when it comes to understanding what a dish tastes like, and to me. And I'm trying to just kind of pass that on to Manny more and more, and my other chefs like Tyler over at Edoboy and things like that.
Where did you learn that technique? Was that something that your parents were doing as well? Or is that just something that you just kind of thought of on your own, of just like, we could branch out and really try variations of this before we kind of settle on, okay, this is the thing?
Yeah. I think it's just a me thing, you know, to be honest with you, because it's not, I notice that it's not just when I'm in research and development, but myself in everyday life. You know, I'm always just like very meticulous with things, and it's a gift. It's a gift and a curse, obviously, right? Because then you stress yourself out extremely, way more than you probably should.
You use it for good, rather.
Yeah. I use it for good, for 100%. But that, you know, those research and development days go on for very long, like weeks and weeks at a time, and just to get one dish sometimes. And, you know, and sometimes we scrap the dish altogether. But going into that, you know, I've been kind of doing that over the last 7 years, like continuously, and just building, like a lot of times I'll go in there and I'll just make dishes. Just anything that comes to my head, I'm like, I don't know if this is for any of the restaurants at all, but I'll go in there because I want to just make sure, see if I can do this dish, what I'm thinking in my head. And eventually, if I do complete it at some point, it's in my phone. My phone is like full. Hopefully I don't give my secret out. Someone steals my phone, but my phone is just a gigantic database of research and development that I've done over the 7 years of just outside of being inside the kitchen at DOMU or any of the restaurants. This is my extracurricular time that I continue to do to this day, that I rent out the kitchen at East End. We'll usually be in there on off days and off hours, and just be working 6 to 8 hours at a time, just developing recipes. And a lot of times I'm just going in there and just developing, you know, and I don't know what it's for. Eventually it'll come to light for some reason. It'll fit somewhere, at some place. And, you know, so I just have like a vault of like recipes, and I'm actually now just starting to use some of them finally, you know, for this upcoming menu, seasonal menu and things like that. And I have like concepts that I've already kind of researched and developed recipes for, and this and that. So I still have like concepts in the vault as well. I'm just like itching and waiting for one day to do it.
Because 7 restaurants is not enough, obviously, for one person.
No, but the thing is, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, I think I have just like a drive in me, or like I'm passionate, like just really passionate about not necessarily the number of restaurants, but the passion of like getting my ideas and things that I've always wanted to do, or things I've spent a lot of time on that's never seen the light of day, out to people so they can actually see what it is I'm working on. Because a lot of times I feel like I'm just like confined into, people see me as what DOMU Tori Tori Edoboy are, and that's it, you know. But I have so much more. It's just I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, and you love the challenge. That's what keeps you coming back to it, right?
I think just understanding my evolution from the first day at DOMU in East End in 2016 to now, and just understanding that I just know so much more, you know, and understand so much more. And I really want people to see that too. I think the biggest thing for me is that, you know, most recently I started a family. I have 2 kids now. So, you know,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
You know, it's just, you know, trying to balance life of work and family and my own personal life and things like that has been a really big challenge over the past few years, especially after COVID. And
It made us
you
look
know?
differently at time, didn't it? Like COVID just like,
Yeah.
it broke our brains in a lot of ways, but we had to kind of rebuild what we value and how we use our time and that sort of thing, right?
Honestly,
So many
man,
things.
that time was so bad. I just like
I
almost
bet.
don't even remember. Like I almost,
You block it?
yeah, I almost block it out
Uh-huh.
because it
Yeah.
was just such a tough time.
You
Like
had to
it's,
pivot and then pivot again. And
for the restaurant, I mean, I'm sure for everybody, but for the restaurant industry, it was like, man,
yeah.
it was so hard to get ingredient. I don't know. It was just we couldn't staff because we couldn't open. It was a pretty
And you went from food and bev to just food basically, because it's like, yeah, like drinks are such an important component to keeping a business alive in the restaurant industry. So yeah, it seemed like an impossible equation. So
you know the thing is that during that time I was thinking like, man, if we can get through this, we can probably literally get through anything ever. So,
yeah,
you know what
seriously.
I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's so true.
That was just what I was just thinking in my head the whole entire time. There was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
And you had how many restaurants during the pandemic at that time?
I had 5.
Okay.
5, yeah.
I mean, people struggled with just one restaurant.
Oh,
I can only imagine the stress that 5 restaurants during a pandemic, during that time.
Yeah.
You're superhuman, obviously. That's,
No. I mean, all I could do was try my absolute best to look out for my staff the best that I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I was crutched heavily on just money. I would think it was the biggest thing of making sure we were able to pay our bills.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just really trying to like work with our landlords and this and that to just try to just keep us open, you know, as long as we possibly could until we can like get back on our feet, essentially. You know, I did have to cut back on staff and things like that at the time because the bars weren't even open and, you know, and there's nothing I could, you know, the city wouldn't allow us to open and for good reason, for everyone's safety. But it was just like, it was just a tough time in my life. And
it's hard to even imagine that scenario now. I think all of us have just decided, like we don't want to think about it because it was so hard, and it was so hard to know what the future would bring too. It's like, how long is this? Is this ever going to come back? Right? And now that a lot of the things have come back, we celebrate it in a different way, even
maybe even more, you know, or appreciate it even more, you know. Yeah, it definitely made us all stronger. 100%. Everyone in the restaurant industry is 1,000 times stronger. And I know like there's some people that exited the restaurant industry at the time, but it's still here. It's still thriving. I think it's a great opportunity for anyone that's at least passionate in that field, whether it's front of house, back of house, service, bar. If you just even have a passion for it, I think it's still a great opportunity to build a career. At least I look at the restaurant industry as a career, you know, and it's still here. So I don't think it's going anywhere. So
we all have to eat, right?
And,
and the joy of eating is such an important thing. And I think that people in Orlando understand that a lot more now too. You know, just growing up, I didn't really know what good food was, you know.
Same. Yeah.
It was just kind of a maintenance thing. And one of the things that I wanted to mention too about ramen and your chicken wings, like that combination of things, and it kind of almost does bring me back to like a childhood memory. Like it's just like a sense memory of just like those two delicious things. And you have like this beet barbecue, you have a seasonal wing, and so good. I mean, just so good.
I really want to give the credential for that specific sauce to Manny. You know, Manny's is a great addition to our culinary side. I've always had like some other chefs like Tyler and Alex, but Manny, I kind of hired on a couple years ago just to kind of like help him shape into becoming the culinary director. Eventually, one of these days, you know, I think that my family is going to become a really big part of my time. And, you know, I want to continue to shape him into understanding my thought process, what it is I'm looking for, flavors, and what our concepts are. So that way one day I can fully entrust him that he can produce the next season's worth of changes and updates. So at some point that I think that will happen as my daughters get older. And so that, you know, but that sauce specifically, we always have battles every season. I won't say battles, but like we always both make a sauce,
all right,
or a few sauces.
The Iron Chef idea, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're just kind of like, all right, well, let's see what our staff thinks about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's always kind of like, or
that's fun though.
Sometimes
that's super
it's
fun.
like, damn, I think you made a better sauce than me. So let's continue tweaking that one. You know what I mean? So it's like, but Manny's made a few of the really great wing sauces, such as the beef barbecue, and he also made the most recently Thai green curry.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. I think that was a lot of everyone's favorite, and I think that so he understands the vision, he understands the flavor profile, he understands that there has to be a playful element to it or artisanal element to it. So he's definitely on that track, and I think that we have a lot more planned for the next 3 seasons. Like we already planned out the next 3 seasons of changes. So I think that there's going to be just a continual evolution of DOMU, forever almost.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it's such a rare thing, and I think that speaks volumes to just your openness to let others shine. It doesn't have to be your recipe, and it's a collaboration. Like, you're there for all of it, and it's constantly evolving and developing, like you said, and improving and innovating, and that keeps it interesting. That keeps people coming back. Obviously, you're in such a prime location with East End Market there. You have a built-in audience because it's just constant flows of traffic. So much to see and do and eat at East End.
Oh, we love East End.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
I always look at East End as my home base. Like, even though there's 7 restaurants, like I always turn back to East End as like my home base, just because I was there all of my time. I love East End. I love the management there, John Rife, the owner, and just seeing the evolution over the years too, and kind of seeing it from the very first version of East End Market and kind of seeing it grow over the years as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, East End has been, I think, quite an essential part of our success as well. Just being blessed to be given the opportunity to open the restaurant there. And I think, yeah, like you're saying, just the foot traffic alone and people kind of looking at East End as like an innovative hub. For like new things or great things. It's at the time when we opened up, Gideon's was opening up at the same time, like at the exact same time. They had just opened up their stall, and man, they've blown up. Shout out to Steve, but like, man, he's in Disney now, and it's absolutely insane to see his progression in there. And a lot of the OGs too, like Lineage has also expanded out and did their own thing, and the roasting, wholesaling, and bean side of things, and everyone kind of like really utilized East End as their jumpstart to further their brands and careers, really. Yeah. So East End is probably a special part of everyone's lives, to be honest with you. The Cadence guys and girls, they got their jumpstart there as well, So, and Low over at Kaya. And so it's now that I look back at it, it's, yeah, a lot has been accomplished from East End in 10 years. So
yeah, it is really, it's quite amazing how much it has changed the area for the good. Just the changes that East End has brought. And so did you work with Capo, like when they were at East End? So Capo became Cadence, the 3 chefs that you mentioned, and so you were there doing sushi as well. You were doing prep, or no?
No. So at the time they were still at Avenue, and they were transitioning to opening Capo. So I knew they were leaving the Avenue side, and that's why I had to get everything together for the transition. But they also at the time needed initial investment to get things going. So I had a little bit of money saved up, so I put everything I had into helping them get it going. So I was more on the side of just like helping them get it up and going.
That's amazing. What a way to contribute and help, right? And see what they're doing now too. It's like what a thing.
Yeah, honestly, I looked up to them like heavily, in my culinary career, and that's why I was so inspired. I was like, yeah, like let me do what I can. I don't have a lot, but let me contribute what I can. And
you saw the talent and the personalities, and they're just such great people too. Like, yeah.
They're great people. They have, they had such a journey, getting to where they're at in their culinary careers. And it really, I would say that heavily inspired me the most was probably those three. And I've said it in a lot of interviews that they inspired me to do what I do. You know what I mean?
Their arrival to the scene was so transformational, wasn't it?
I think it was a pivotal moment.
It, yeah.
Like, honestly, chef's tastings and omakases and things like that were just not present, so
not at all.
And they kind of like
not in Orlando. Yeah, exactly.
Mainstreamed it, I guess.
They popularized it here, right?
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. And so they're like a huge part of the culinary scene, in my opinion, of where we are today. They helped shape the beginning aspects of it. So
yeah, and they have a Michelin star, and you also have a Michelin Bib Gourmand.
Yes, exciting
which
times.
Is so cool. Yeah, in the first round, what an honor to be recognized that way, right?
Man,
I can only imagine what that would have been like.
Honestly, when we first broke news that Michelin was coming, I talked to my teams actually, and I told them, I was like, I don't think we have what it takes to be on the Michelin guide, but one of these years, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, as I think people love us for who we are. So we're just going to be who we are and keep doing what we're doing. But one of these years, let's shape up, let's get everything together, let's really, really like just any of the parts where we aren't doing that well in, let's improve it and all these things. So that way we might be a contender in that field for any of our concepts. And so that's why I think it felt the most impactful for me was that they put us in their first round, because I didn't even think we were even on the map to even be looked at by them. You know what I mean? So I think it was a very proud moment for me. I think that was like one of the most pinnacle peak moments in my life. And I think
it's a big deal, right? Yeah.
It's just something I just wasn't expecting, I guess, or even on my radar. So, I think that really, is the peak of my career at that point. Besides like meeting like Morimoto, other than that, like that was those two moments where like, oh man, like I'm good. Like,
that's amazing. Yeah.
But
was that when the restaurant opened at Disney Springs, or?
No, he recently, when we opened up Edoboy, the chef over at Disney Springs hit me up through email one evening, and he was like, "Hey, do you have any openings on this date?" He's been hitting me up a few times actually, and it was always like booked. So I was like, "No, unfortunately, it's not available." The one time he did hit me up, it was available. And he told me, I'm actually bringing Chef Morimoto with me.
Wow.
He wants to check out your spot. And so they went to Tori Tori first. So I met up with Chef Morimoto and their team and the executive chef from Disney Springs. And we were all there drinking highballs and hanging out. Yeah, it was just cool because like I was just in disbelief that Chef Morimoto was at Tori Tori, just standing at the front of the bar, drinking a highball, and me sitting next to him, and we're talking about his leg injury. I don't know, just like normal stuff,
yeah.
And
wow.
I'm like, man, like I looked up to this guy since I was a kid. I went to his restaurant in 2009 for the very first time in New York, and I was so excited. I remember at the time, actually, when I went, Mark Burden from Cadence was working behind the sushi bar, so we happened to sit right in front of Mark.
Nice.
And I was like, I recognize you, because we know each other from games, but we didn't interact much. And
wow,
I was like, oh, okay. So then it clicked that this is Mark, working at Morimoto in 2009, and we happened to sit just right in front of him at Morimoto for the first time. So, anyways, that all coincidence, and it just really struck me that like, man, like, as excited as I was to go to his restaurant, I never thought that he would ever come to any of my restaurants at all,
What an honor, yeah.
And it just felt like absolutely like
out-of-body experience, surreal.
Maybe those are the right words.
Humbling,
humbling is huge. But it was like, I don't know, man. Like, like I guess if there was like a celebrity or band member or someone that you just always looked up to, and then for me, like over the years, like if I was in New York, I would randomly see some like a celebrity or something, and I would always freeze up and like I always wanted to be like, yo, what's up, or whatever, like shake his hand and like take a photo, but I would always freeze up and be like, oh gosh, and I feel awkward or whatever, and
they're just people at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. They're always super friendly and things like that, but it's just always freeze up. And then like after my last time, and this is gonna sound really lame, but like I was in New York, me and my wife were at the mall in New York, and we saw Ja Rule, right? Ja Rule was like a huge hip hop artist when I was growing up, and we love his music, him and Ashanti, and so I don't know if everyone knows, but I'm really big into hip hop. And I just froze up. Like he passed us, and he was just saying what's up to everybody, and then like, and I froze. And after that moment, I told my wife, I was like, in the future, if this like if we ever see anybody or anything like that ever happens again, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna try to get say what's up. I say I'm a huge fan and get a photo or whatever it is. It's just. It's just one of those moments that you're like, you never thought you would meet this person. So I had that same feeling with Morimoto. And I was like, man, this may never happen again. So I printed out a little like Iron Chef photo back in like when it was Iron Chef Japan. I don't even know, maybe like early 90s photo of him and there were 4 chefs, one from each country. It was like China, Italy, but it was an Asian chef and him. And basically I had it in my pocket the whole time, and I was so nervous. I was like, oh gosh, should I whip this out or is this going to be so lame? And, I got the courage up and I whipped it out and I showed him. I was like, do you mind signing this for me? Yeah. And just because it's just like one of those, I don't know, even though that signature, it was just a signed photo, but it was just, I guess it meant a lot to me. And and he looked at it and he chuckled and he was like, oh man, it's like, because he obviously was a photo, way young version of him. And like, and there's probably those times and he's kind of explained it to me that, just some of the chefs and stuff like that. But it was a really big fanboying moment for me to meet Chef Morimoto. And and even though it was just like meeting him and being able to hang out with him and getting his like nod at Edoboy, like you're doing a great job, I think that really meant possibly even more than the Michelin guy to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What an endorsement, right? From somebody that you look up to so much, and that, just like you never really know what level you're at, and that's maybe kind of a theme here. Is that like you're doing it at your level that you're always trying to like top that and get better and improve, and you're like, I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'm could make the Michelin guide or anything else, and then you get recognized in that way, and people show up in that way, right? And that's sort of how I think sometimes we don't have the self-awareness, right? Like sometimes it does come from that acknowledgement from others. And I mean, we try not to dwell on that too much, but it is sort of a guiding signal in a way, right?
100%, honestly. Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. And I tell my chefs this all the time, that I believe that if you can make it in our kitchen, then you'll be a great cook or a great chef in any other kitchen, right? And I think that I disclaimer that is that I don't know how other kitchens are being ran. You know what I mean? I'm just doing it my own way and on my own thoughts of like what I believe it to be. You know what I mean? And obviously I have assistants now with like my back of house director, basically the systems and the structures. He kind of helps with that too, James. And I guess it's like, again, like being the self-awareness of like just doing you basically and not knowing how anyone else does anything and just kind of following that path, and I think that, I don't know, it's always worked out for me. I have like, I just follow my instinct. I follow my gut feeling a lot of times, and just being myself is probably been like my biggest asset in my life, So, and at least in my career,
Well, and when you have that foundational knowledge that you have, it gives you that ability, right? Because you're not having to like fake it till you make it. Like all of the elements of running a restaurant, building a restaurant, starting something new, staffing, it's like you have such extensive experience in that on different levels, different capacities. So you bring that to your projects, and you can just like be sure that you've got that stuff, and you've got the team for that stuff, right? And then what you bring to it is the you part as well, right? And just like being honest and open, not bringing ego to it, not being afraid for somebody else to shine. It doesn't have to be like your thing every time. Like all of that is, I think, what kind of makes this such a unique story, and why your places are so successful too.
Yeah, I guess it is a huge combination, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess if you take a step back and look at it, yeah, we're just blessed to be here at all, and just being accepting of the city, and the locals. Really, I think we're okay with being who we are, and we're okay with, there's nothing for us that we have to like, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know how to explain it, but like, yeah. So
is it that at this point, you don't feel like you have to stretch to stand out, that what you're doing stands out in its own way, and you're being authentic to yourself, and it just comes kind of naturally, right?
Maybe
you're just
that's what it
sort
is.
of like, you're in that flow. Like people talk about when you have a talent and you're utilizing it, you just get in the flow, and you don't have to think about it too much. It's not that it's effortless, but the type of work is very efficient because you're not overthinking it. You're doing, and you're creating results, and you're kind of getting to where you want to get to without extra energy like wasted, right?
Yeah, maybe we're just getting better at what we do, and we're just comfortable being in our own skin more and more, and just and I don't think we have anything we have to prove to anybody, you know. And so I think when you have all these things, kind of like, it just puts you in a good spot.
That's an inspiring story too. I mean, you reach a certain level, you keep innovating, and you continue the work, but kind of where the drive comes from is maybe a different place too, right?
Maybe
there's like a comfort level, or like maybe like less fear about how you'll be received. Maybe you're just letting go of some of those things that are just like, okay, we don't need to worry about at least that part of it, because we have our audience, we have our recipes, our innovation. We're going to listen to feedback, and we're going to evolve and develop according to like what's working, right?
Yeah. I guess, you hit it on the nose. Nice. I'm like trying to think, and
we got there together.
Yeah,
right? That's the collaboration.
I think you put I think you understood what I was trying to say without me even saying it, you know, type of thing. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a place to be. And I gotta mention this story in my research about the business plan that you had developed when I think you were 5 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell me about that. What like this vision of a ramen restaurant when you were a child.
So crazy.
Yeah. Like how many years in the making? That like
honestly, I don't, man.
It's meant to be, and obviously the name DOMU, dream come true, is like, this is a 5-year-old's dream coming true, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when I made the name DOMU, it wasn't even correlating to that letter. Actually, I didn't even remember that I had that letter.
Is that right?
My parents brought it up at some point, like earlier on in my DOMU days, and was like, hey, you know, we have this letter that we'll give to you, you know, one of these days, maybe when you get married or something like that. And I was like, well, send me the letter, like a picture of it. And I was like, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I do remember exactly this moment that it happened though. We were in my parents' room, my mom and my dad and myself were on the bed, and he had this a legal pad you could flip over and go to the next page. It was one of those, and I remember specifically it was like a blue Bic pen. I remember like talking it out loud with my parents of like, I want to open up and sell instant ramen out of my garage.
What a great plan. Yeah.
Even though like as a kid, I'm like thinking, man, these people are going to walk up to our garage and buy instant ramen.
Doesn't sound sketchy at all.
Yeah. Would never happen. But you know, and I would be the cook. cook slash chef, and my cousin. It was mostly all my cousins and one of my best friends that would be helping me between serving and managing and all these things. And I kind of just laid out a business plan, and my dad was like, "All right, well, write it down." And I was like, "Okay." And then obviously at that age, I needed help. Like, I don't think I necessarily knew how to write sentences that well at that time. Sure. And so my mom was helping me spell things out. And I remember on there when I saw it, it said noodles, not noodles. I was missing, I had an extra D instead of an extra O.
I mean, details. You know what that means, though. So that's the important thing.
But the funny thing is that I remember that my mom was helping me spell everything out. So that was her version of spelling noodles, which is really funny. So, but yeah, that was some reason that specific moment, my memory's not the best short term, but for some reason, certain moments long term in my life are just like really just really vivid in my mind.
I'm very much that way as well.
Yeah, and I remember that very exact moment when that letter was being written and what I was thinking and things like that. And yeah, it is kind of crazy to think that like maybe, that was the conception of me opening a noodle shop, a ramen shop one day. It sounds
pretty foundational, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
it's like a premonition.
Insane.
Yeah.
So
that's wild.
And just like being in the restaurant industry for so long, and I think it was, like you said, maybe it was just meant to be. And then it was just like that age, it just manifested without me even knowing. And throughout my life, I've been working towards getting to this point, I guess, without me even knowing. So,
yeah, you don't ever hear of a 5-year-old with a business plan that actually comes to fruition, right? It's
that's very unusual.
Yeah. It's profound. I think that's such a cool story, and I'm sure at that time your parents are like, okay, we can't talk him out of this thing. Like this is really ingrained. Like the restaurant is such a family, isn't it? It's like
100, 100%.
And when your family grew you up in a restaurant, then it's just like, okay, I mean, you can't separate it.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't just my parents. It was my aunts and uncles. They also had Chinese buffets, and, they also had a room where I hung out with my cousins and stuff in the back. And so it was just like, we were all kind of grew up in this environment. So it's crazy.
Do your daughters hang out in any of the restaurants? Probably not. There's not space, is there?
Yeah. I unfortunately, I didn't think ahead on the little room in the back somewhere. But, and also, I think that they're really young too. So I think I'm a lot more open-minded as an adult now. And I think that for them, I want them to do whatever it is that they want to do. If they happen to love cooking or they happen to love what I do, then 100% I'll encourage, I'll bring them along. But it's like, if they are interested in anything else, making clay, playing soccer, whatever, I'm 1,000% more interested in what they're interested in. And
that's cool.
And making sure that we shape them that way and not really push them any direction. So I think that, people who love to do something, and I think they should stick with it. I think it's the passion behind it that really drives us, and for me, it just happens to be cooking. And I would say cars is like a close second, because I just have a huge, don't know why, I just love cars, but it's just right behind food. And like, but it's just like, I feel like those like passions we have to follow. I don't know. I just think that at some point they'll lead us to something. Even if you go against the edge and go against what people say of like, you shouldn't keep doing this or it's not getting you anywhere. I still think you should still do it regardless, because I think it will take you somewhere someday, at least for yourself. It'll take you as a person somewhere one day, for your own benefit.
I think that we find connection when we need it too. You know what I mean? I think that authentic connection is one of the most important things. I mean, we have to make a living, we have to survive, and we find ways of earning a paycheck, and hopefully it's in a job that we can either tolerate or we love, ideally a job that we love, but something that sustains us so that we can find connection in our passions and even if it's a side hustle, that sort of thing, and it becomes a main gig.
Yeah, it happens a lot, actually. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And just because you're doing what you love, and I think that's such a huge key part of like
People gravitate towards that too, right? They see
Yeah.
that you love it, and it's like, oh wow, and they're gifted at it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I will give you an example of one of, I don't know if you call him my nephew, but it's like a distant cousin. I don't know. I just call him a nephew. But
Sure.
anyways,
Yeah.
he really, in his younger days, he just loved to play saxophone. And so he played saxophone for a very long time. He was really good at it. I think he was like in a orchestra and all this stuff at a young age. And, you know, I think his parents mentioned to him that I think he should stop because it's not really getting him where they want him to be, or think something like that. And I remember just telling him, like, I think you should just continue doing what you love, because at the end of the day, I get it. You know, your parents want you to be secure. They want you to make sure you can pay your bills and things like that. But at the same time, I don't think you should like kill your passion. You know what I mean? I don't think you should stop doing what you love to do in pursuit of stability. I don't know. For me, it's weird because like during those years, like I always had a roommate. I always, you know, I've lived in a dining room, you know, and just put a bed in the dining room. So like I've always kind of like lived frugally, kind of just pursuing my culinary career. And, you know, so I think it's just like, I kind of just disregarded what everyone else said, you know, and it kind of just...
You were willing to make the sacrifices, and you were willing to put in the work.
Yeah. Even if I didn't necessarily have like any money left over, anything like that, you know, from expenses and things like that, I think I was so caught up in the world of the camaraderie and the learning and all this stuff. And I think that's kind of like really important for everyone to not necessarily go to that extreme maybe, but like just don't lose the passion, you know, or don't forget what it is, because I think it's actually hard to find out what you're passionate about too. You know, as the older you get, I think it's like
that thing that gets you out of bed and gets you excited for the day, right? It's like, you gotta have that.
And I think like some people like, you know, are still out there looking for what they're passionate about too. So I think that if you can hone in on it and figure it out what it is that you love to do, even at a young age, like, and maybe it doesn't, you're not like forever doing it consistently, but you come back to it throughout your life and this and that, and remember that like why you love it. I think that's also super, super important. Actually, I don't even know how we got to this subject.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect transition to my next question, which is about DOMU Lab. You had touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So an incubator for new chefs to try out in basically an 8-person setting restaurant, right? And Camille was the first of the DOMU Lab chefs, right? Tell me about how that first experience went. They're just opening their brick and mortar in Baldwin Park, right?
Yeah. I'm actually really, really proud and excited for Chef Tung. You know, man, I got to give the props for Johnny. He has an eye for finding talent, or just seeing that there is a spark in somebody, you know what I mean? Because Chef Tung definitely 100% has it. I think he's been through a lot of trials and tribulations. He has 4 kids at a young age. He has a lot to fight for in his life in terms of his career. He has a lot of drive. Like, this guy is ambitious, you know, and he's always in a good mood. And I think that combining all these things, it like kind of really set him for... It doesn't matter of like what you threw at him, he's going to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. You know, he's always like, all right. You know, he takes criticism very well. I think he has huge goals and ambitions. And I think that when you really help a person like that fulfill something, like a dream like his was like open up Camille, and like he honestly was able to do it himself. He just kind of needed some resources. You know what I mean? And I think that, Chef Tung, he's great at what he does. So I can feel it, you know, when I talk to him. I can see when I go to his restaurants, I can feel like how much passion he has in what he does. So, you know,
there's like a magnetism, right? There's like a charisma and like I don't know, you believe in leaders that really do have it. Right. And that it comes from such an authentic place, and they've just got a gift, right? They're just like a lot of chefs in this area that do have that. And you just watch them rise because they have the skill set.
Yeah. And kind of just seeing where it takes them, you know, and I think Chef Tung, from the very first time that we sat down, I remember Johnny was doing little private dinners out of his dining room where Chef Tung can like introduce food to friends and family to just kind of see, where he's at and stuff like that. So Camille specifically was really Johnny driving the boat on that one. I'm on that back end giving support in terms of administratively, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the bills, the payroll, motivation, things like that. And, Johnny was the one that really found Chef Tung, gave him the opportunity and really pushed Camille forward. I'm not a part of the Camille over in Baldwin Park, but at least on the upcoming of Camille for DOMU Lab, I was happy to be able to just support Chef Tung in any way that I could, because I really felt like there was just, I don't know, you don't meet a lot of people like Chef Tung that just, I don't know, there's just something about him that you can just tell that this guy just has so much fight in him. You know what I mean? He's going to make sure no matter what, he's going to make it. You know what I mean? And I believe it, and so
you know what it means to give somebody that opportunity to get in front of an audience without the big commitment of a brick and mortar right off, right? It's like
that's a scary moment, man.
Yeah.
It's super scary, to be honest with you, because the responsibility at that point
it changes
like
it.
So big and so massive, and you're just like tied to this contract of a lease, and I don't know. It's just like if you don't do well, there's like a fear of like, damn, so it's just
having a little trial period and honing your, and building up that like audience too. That's so crucial these days, right?
100%. And so it's just so DOMU Lab, I would say, is not just an incubator for chefs, but just chefs and concepts. So so I think that it really depends on what the situation is or what we're out there looking for. It could just be, a concept possibly that DOMU is wanting to release one day, or something like that. But it's really just on a trial basis. We kind of see if it give you opportunity to see if you can make it or not in the restaurant industry on a way, way low risk situation.
It's like a 6-month period, right? Is that sort of the residency, around that?
Roughly around 6 months, I would say, is really the moment where we're really going to understand of like, can we take this further? Can we not? Or like, are we sinking and we're putting a lot of money in to keep everything afloat?
Yeah, you've got metrics at that point, right?
So I think that it gives opportunity, at least on the chef side, of just almost no risk to try it out. So, and then it does put us in a position if it doesn't do well in terms of just financially, but maybe it's worth it just to see, just to give people opportunity sometimes and just see, and it gives them like real life insight of what their thoughts and what their actions and all these things of putting it to the test of whether or not they can sustain in a real life environment of having a brick and mortar, and I think that that's super important too. And that's not a bad thing if it doesn't necessarily do well either, right? Because it's like, it teaches you where areas that you can improve on in order to, it's just a learning lesson at that point. It was no risk, right? So
maybe they realize they're not ready, or that they need to come up with a different approach before they actually dive into it, right?
Exactly. So it's a pro situation,
That's awesome.
for the chef, or the concept. And I mean, it is exciting to have that. And I think we have great neighbors, the neighbors.
Upstairs at East End is called the Neighbors, right? I have to clarify that for our listeners sometimes, because I feel like that can be a little confusing. Like which neighbors? The Neighbors. Upstairs at East End. So that space was formerly the Apex. It was an event hall, and it has a kitchen that is kind of served that event space for a time. And then when that got converted to the Neighbors, it's sort of mixed use at this point as retail and kind of a bar area. And then now that kitchen is where DOMU Lab is taking place, right?
So it's a very experimental situation going on here, trying to blend a restaurant into a retail space and a bar. So
Yeah.
you don't see too many of those, but
Totally.
but it's very experimental. I think it brings elements where it helps each of the other components a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Brittany and Jacob are great. They're a power couple, kind of just trying to innovate.
And they're of freehand goods and the neighbors, right?
Yeah, so Jacob comes from the retail side predominantly, it seems, and Brittany actually helped me open up the bar of in 2016 for DOMU as the bar manager. So she has extensive bar programming and experience. So I guess that's how the neighbors is literally just those two together, as a concept. So it's really cool to see that. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting how everything kind of comes together in that way too, right?
Yeah.
And for this concept of being an incubator, I mean, that was the one of the original ideas of East End to begin with, was this is an incubator space for entrepreneurs, food entrepreneurs particularly. So when they outgrow the space, if they move out or if they want to stay in, they can do that. And some have outgrown the space, some have stayed in, obviously. And we love that is a thing. There are those anchors. It's like, interviewing Steve from Gideon's. He's like, I'm never leaving East End. Like that's, that's where it began. Yeah. That's such an important piece of it. And I think that really kind of creates the atmosphere of East End and the legend of it, the story, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, East End has done a fantastic job at incubating. So, you know what I mean?
It really has. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just like earlier in our conversation, it's just like so many brands and small businesses have started there and have really grown, and it's amazing to see. I'm really proud of like all those people that we started with at that time,
Yeah.
So, and to see them now, so it's pretty crazy.
It really is. Yeah. What a legacy, what a history, and just, I mean, it's so exciting to see what will be next too,
Well, I would say this is one thing I know about John Rife just over the years is that he keeps East End extremely dynamic. So there are really no boundaries of like what is, because I've seen that market change from an office to actual businesses going to those spaces. And I've seen him give a lot of people opportunity of going into the market. And so I think that market's always going to be dynamic. When I talk to him, East End is a very important part of his life. And I think that, he's going to continue what he started for a very long time, I feel. So
yeah. And I always have to plug my wife, Gabby, who was one of the founding members of East End.
Oh,
and
really?
She hasn't been involved for quite some time, but
Okay.
East End evolved from an idea that she runs the farmers market at Stardust on Monday nights.
Okay, yeah.
So she's been so she's been doing that about 15 years now. And John had come to her for help planning the Harvest Festival because there was a big market that was happening in Winter Park. So they teamed up for that, and they produced a couple of Harvest Festivals together. And he said, I want to do some kind of concept, but I don't really know what. And his background is commercial real estate. Yep. So Gabby was like, well, there's this market that we saw in Seattle called Melrose. And it's a neighborhood scale market, has, butcher shop, seafood, cheese, a restaurant in the back. So they went and they visited Melrose and they talked to the owner there and did a research trip and brought that back. And we were looking at this building that was just vacant there. And so that's how that location came to be as well. So yeah, like speaking of the 10-year history, it's like she was there for the entire inception and she project managed the construction of it. So she has some of that like background knowledge too, and there for that entire process of gathering the vendors who were going to be in it. Lineage got their start actually at her market.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and Skybird did. I know there were others as well. So it's an evolution thing. So it started in the parking lot at Stardust and then moved to East End, which is kind of a little known fact, but
yeah.
That's part of why I want to do this podcast is like, it's good to know the history and where things came from. And, it gives an idea of kind of where they're going and who's going to be involved in that.
Yeah. Were you there? So that was it a church prior?
It was a church, and then they were somebody had purchased it and they were kind of building a school there. I think it was going to be a Montessori school.
Okay.
So they had started construction, and I think they just got in over their head and realized that it wasn't a viable project anymore. There was somebody that wanted to buy it and I think level it and make storage units, which would have been just horrific, right? Yeah. We're so grateful that things worked out the way that they did ultimately for East End to be that incubator and so meaningful to our lives and connected us with so many people. And it's cool to like continue to make those connections, years later down the line too. So talking to you today, cause we've never had a conversation before, and I've known about you forever. So this is like such a cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I was like, again, like, I think Audubon Park was obviously where we planted our roots, and it was such a great neighborhood, great locals. There's great shopping in the area, like Park APGDs, and great little pockets of stores and retail and boutiques and food and bar. I don't know. It's not big, but it's like, you can just tell there's a lot of history here. And I don't know. I love Audubon Park for that reason, right? And it's just a quaint little pocket of Orlando that
you wouldn't even know it's here, right? It's just
unless you're passing by, unless
uh-huh.
you're like, I guess, going to Baldwin Park or you wouldn't, or Winter Park, you wouldn't really necessarily know it's here. And I love that little like small town kind of feel where you can just kind of walk across the street and get to the next small business, and it's a really cool little like cross section over here. Audubon Park for sure is on the map in terms of Orlando, and I think I see more and more people attracted to this area. So I'm just happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. There's so much influence I feel that comes from Audubon Park and has
spread out.
I feel in ways it was kind of a template for some of the other districts that have really made names for themselves, and the branding and the events. It's cool to be part of that and get to know people that are part of that as well. And it brings us all closer, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of great history here. And just like you said, the main streets, like honestly, I feel like the main streets did get larger after the Audubon Park Garden District, and like the Milk District is getting bigger now. And Mills 50 is always been a very big stretch. And all these pockets outside of downtown, I think, is what really makes Orlando, in my eyes, Orlando.
It wouldn't be probably the top of the list for foodie cities, honestly. It had these events not taken place, the districts really do make it, because you go downtown in Orlando and there's really not too much there. Like it's not, it's a bar scene and it's offices. So the neighborhoods really are kind of, that's the core of Orlando's heart, I think.
Yeah, sometimes I almost forget that like Disney and Universal are even here. You know what I mean? Like
they're so detached.
Maybe I'm just living here. I don't ever go, and at the same time, it's like I forget they're even here sometimes. Because I guess they're on like another part of Orlando that's just so far out there, and I never traveled that way, but it's just,
we're in our little like microcosm here.
Just on the outskirts of downtown Orlando, right. And it's just it's great. So I love it here in Orlando, and I'm glad I planted my roots here.
Same. Well, let's talk about the 7-year anniversary that's coming up. It's November 6th through the 10th.
Yep.
So 7th anniversary week.
It's being planned out by Mabel, our marketing director. She's been a huge addition to our team in terms of just like keeping things up to date and current events and
you gotta have that, right? You can't do it all yourself when you've got 7 restaurants.
To be honest with you, I did do it all the way up until 2021.
Wow.
2021 is when I brought Mabel on. Because I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And I did all the social media. It was just crazy. But anyways, regardless of that, Mabel kind of is planning that this year, and she has a lot of great things coming up. T-shirt designs, stickers, giveaways, bags, We upgraded the ramen challenge this year. We typically have an annual Carolina Reaper ramen challenge. It's a spicy ramen challenge, and a lot of people love coming out for that to see if they can beat the bowl. But this year we actually turned it up. The very first year we're introducing Dragon's Breath chilies. So it's unofficial, but the Scoville units of the Dragon's Breath pepper is spicier than the Carolina Reaper. Wow. And Carolina Reaper has been reigning supreme as number one, for a very long time in terms of the world's hottest pepper. So I've always been looking for what is hotter than the Carolina Reaper pepper every single year. So finally, we're able to get our hands on some Dragon's Breath peppers, and we're taking it up a notch this year for the ramen challenge. It's called the Dragon's Breath Ramen Challenge this year. There's a cool T-shirt if you win. You get your picture put onto the winner's board, and that stays forever. You get your picture on there that you won, and we get the ramen for free.
That's
so
amazing.
You get the ramen T-shirt and a picture if you win that, and that's usually going on Thursday and Wednesday of the week of our anniversary week. This year we're doing wine down at East End Market on that Wednesday, and that's bottomless wine, light bites up until 7:30. We have our in-house DJ Omakase. He's also one of the chefs at Edoboy.
Nice.
So he's always, he always likes to DJ at our home events, and it's going to be a good time. But on Monday, we are doing a $200 gift card giveaway for Edoboy. You get a lot of sushi off $200 for sure.
Yeah.
Sushi and alcohol. Tuesday, we're going to be giving away free sticker and free color changing cup. That's like always an annual thing for us for Chibi, which is in Waterford Lakes until supplies run out. As long as you purchase something, we're giving you these free items. And we always have a new design every year, so it's exciting to just see what's next, what the next design is.
Collector's items.
Yeah, pretty much collector's items. Yeah, I actually collect all of them myself, but I could be biased. But
that's awesome. Yeah.
And Wednesday is the wind down that we talked about, and then Thursday is Customer Appreciation Day at all of our main DOMU store. So that's East End, Dr. Phillips, and Jacksonville. Customer Appreciation Day is basically free ice cream. You can just purchase a soda and we'll give you free ice cream, So I think this year we have a special flavor that we're doing, and it's going to be one that everyone is familiar with and loves, and we're only doing it for anniversary week.
Oh, wow.
So and it's just something that, we know that everyone loves, and it's like but anyways, I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Sure. Yeah. Those in the know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is soft serve that you make there.
Yeah. So
That's
soft
awesome.
serve in a cone or a cup, and it's on the house. We're doing the T-shirt giveaway that day too, of the first allotted amount of customers get a free anniversary T-shirt.
Nice.
The ramen challenge will be on both Wednesday and Thursday. So as long as you come in to dine in, you can do the ramen challenge any of those days. Friday will be the closing event at Tori Tori, where we're doing we're teaming up with Suntory, our number one supplier for Japanese whiskey. We're doing a listening party where we bring in a DJ spinning classic Japanese music or just old school music, possibly on records, and really giving out free highballs, and we're also doing a Kill the Keg where we're giving out free beer of Gatsu, which is our collaboration beer with Ravenous Pig.
Nice.
Until the keg runs out. But there's just a lot of free stuff. We
Yeah.
want to give back to
It's a
the
celebration.
community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everyone's always supported us. So this is our one time in the year where we give a whole week long celebration of just, we want to give as much as we can back to the community, and just to come out, support us, really just show our appreciation and thanks for allowing us to be here over the years. And it really means a lot to us that we're still being supported to this day. And we're happy to do it. I'm always excited for anniversary week to kind of see what the new T-shirt design is going to be. And we give all of our staff free T-shirts and all this stuff. And it's just a very hype moment for us.
Yeah.
It's
a very proud thing to celebrate another year, right? And now that you're at 7, it's you're getting closer to a decade and still going strong, right?
Yeah. 100%. And and then it only gears up from here for us. Like, Mabel's super busy planning parties. So we have anniversary week going into our annual staff Thanksgiving potluck, and then going into our annual
this is the busy season
holiday
for a restaurant
party.
Yeah.
And then going into our annual New Year's Eve party that we throw at Tori Tori, which was epic last year, and we will be releasing tickets for that at some point coming up. You don't want to miss that. It's usually an all-inclusive one ticket price. We close the restaurant down for the evening and just have a huge party, DJ, food, champagne, drinks, everything, just lights, and it's a party, a balloon drop. I think everyone should be on the lookout for that. Like, I always have probably the best time out of the whole entire year. Besides the holiday party, the New Year's Eve party, but they're all back to back from here on out, from November, December, January. It's just a lot of parties. So our staff loves it, and at least I hope they do, of us throwing all these parties.
I mean, we should be celebrating much more often, right? Again, after the pandemic, it's like our appreciation or our level of joy. It's like, we definitely don't need to delay that, and
not anymore. So hopefully, in my lifetime, not another pandemic happens.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So what are the websites that people go to? I'll link some things to the podcast itself, but the socials and for places for people to go.
So to find us on social media, our social tags are for DOMU at DOMU FL. For Tori Tori, it's at Tori Tori Pub. For Edoboy, it's at Edoboy Sushi. The websites are www.domufl.com for Domu, toritoripub.com for Tori Tori, and edoboysushi.com for Edoboy. And that's where you can find us on social media and website.
Well, Sonny, it's just been such a treat talking to you. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for everything that you do. And I wish you all of the best of luck with everything that you're doing and future things. And we look forward to what's next.
I appreciate you having me, honestly, and really just connecting the community and kind of bringing to light the history of Audubon Park. I think that's super cool to hear. So, a lot of these stories that I don't think a lot of people actually know, you know what I mean, in terms of the history of what we have here in this neighborhood. And again, we're happy to be here, and thank you for having me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you around the neighborhood.
All right, cool.
Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast, is brought to you in part by Stardust Video and Coffee, Audubon Park's beloved neighborhood cafe, bakery, bar, and meeting place, located at 1842 East Winter Park Road. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks to Trey Hester for all his help in making this podcast a reality. This episode is brought to you in part by Audubon Park Community Market. Join us every Monday from 5 to 8 p.m., rain or shine, in the parking lot of Stardust Video and Coffee. This weekly gathering of makers, farmers, gardeners, fishmongers, ranchers, artisans, entrepreneurs, neighbors, and friends brings the very best of Central Florida to you every week. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.